You mentioned that there's an election due to be called early next year. Well, Anthony Albanese has unveiled the catchphrase he hopes will convince Australians to give him another 3 years in the lodge. Have a listen and see if you think it'll work.
And my government has always been focused on making Australians' lives better. The number one priority of my government is to continue providing support. My message is we have your back.
We have your back. Personally, I think we've turned our back would be a more truthful catchphrase. I mean, this government has turned its back on Israel, turned its back on the promise to reduce our electricity bills, turned its back on freedom of speech. Should I keep going? Because I've got about 20 of these
Where do we start? Well, I'll tell you what, he's got a knife in my back, I think, a knife in most Australians' back. And it's more like he's actually backed us all into a corner, James. What do you think? Our power bills have risen under Albo. Prices of housing, rent's gone up. I mean, we're in an absolute mess. Grocery bills. And when you think about it, Albanese was elected on a cost of living mandate. Now, here we are at the end of another parliamentary sitting year, and where are we at? We're nowhere. So if this is now the alleged slogan for the upcoming election, God help us, because we're going to be hearing this a lot, but it is dead in the water before it's even started, because Labor has made this cost of living crisis worse. And I found a really interesting statistic this week that said that Labor is now presiding over the longest household recession, with GDP per capita going backwards for the past 6 quarters in a trend that exceeds the past 50 years. So when we actually break that down, if we think about that logically, Labor has been in power since May 2022. So for most of Anthony Albanese's Prime Minister, for most of his Prime Ministership, the economy has actually gone in the wrong direction. But don't worry, because Anthony Albanese has your back. There's
a couple of problems with this slogan, right? Firstly, if you say to someone, don't worry, I've got your back, it implies that they are in trouble, right? So the very slogan reminds Australians that, gee, we're in a bit of a tough spot at the moment, as if we need someone to have our back. And the second problem with it is it invites you to wonder, if anyone did have my back, would I trust the Albanese government to have my back? And I reckon they would be the last people you'd want right behind you. By the way, it also implies, if I can pick up a third strain, they've got our back. It would be nice to have some leadership rather than being behind us all the time.
Stand in front of us, Anthony Albanese. Stand in front of us. And the other thing is, James, if you remember, Donald Trump, in the last few days before he won the election, he asked the American public, he said, how has your life changed in the last 4 years? And overwhelmingly, Americans said no. So I would ask you at home, and I'd ask you, James, has your life improved in the last 2.5 years since Anthony Albanese was elected? And according to the latest polling, most Australians actually say no. When you think Albo is behind in the polls, Peter Dutton is doing much better in the polling. That Australians say that, no, actually, I am poorer under this Labor government.
So here's what the Liberal Party should do, right? When Anthony Albanese trots out this catchphrase, don't worry, I've got your back, the Liberal Party should talk about getting the Albanese government off our backs, because that's how it feels. Just get off my back.
Yeah, and I feel as well, the other thing is and just to go back to the US for an example, the Democrats really abandoned that working class, that blue-collar base. And here we're having this, it really is a copy and paste to an extent here, because Labor has abandoned the blue-collar base in the last 2.5 years with really arrogant policies, woke and divisive politics. I mean, where do we even begin with that? But also, again, the wrong priorities, because cost of living is still number one. It's front of centre for everyone. And these people, they're on a journey for misinformation, disinformation, banning social media, the Voice campaign. Again, it's not what is front of mind at the moment. So again, they are behind us. They're not front of us, front of mind where they should be.
Anthony Albanese, the monkey on your back. That'll be the slogan.
Oh, I can't wait for this next campaign. Here we go.